Welcome to Of Soul, the place where simple moments remind us of what truly matters. Stories that speak not to your mind, but to your heart. If you're new here, take a deep breath, settle in, and let this story remind you of the love we often overlook in the noise of life. The sun had barely risen over the small town of Maplewood when the faint sound of metal clinking echoed from Ray's auto works. The smell of oil, grease, and early morning air filled the little garage. Inside, a man in his mid-30s crouched beside an old sedan, his hands covered in grime, his face glistening with a thin layer of sweat. That man was Raymond Cole, known around town simply as Ray the Mechanic. He wasn't just a man who fixed cars. He was the guy who never turned down a neighbor in need, who often stayed late to help someone get their car running, even if it meant he'd miss dinner again. He had the kind of patience that engines demand and the kind of heart that children adore. And that's exactly what made the next few minutes so unforgettable. From across the street came a tiny voice, sharp and filled with excitement. "Dad, Dad." Ray looked up, confused at first, then smiling wide as he spotted her. That was Emma, Ray's 5-year-old daughter, a bundle of energy, curiosity, and sunshine, who had just returned from her grandma's house after spending 2 whole days away. To Ray, those 2 days felt like weeks. "Daddy, Daddy, look what I drew for you." She clutched a slightly crumpled piece of paper, a stick-figure drawing of her and her dad beside a big blue car. "Well, would you look at that? That's beautiful, Em. You even got the car right. Look at those wheels." "That's you fixing it, Daddy. And that's me helping you. You sure are my best helper, huh?" Emma nodded proudly, then suddenly frowned. "Daddy, why do you always have to work so much?" Ray paused, the question landing heavier than any wrench he'd ever held. It wasn't the first time she'd asked, but somehow, each time it pierced deeper. "Well, sweetheart, I fix cars so we can have everything we need. Your favorite cereal, your crayons, that big teddy bear you sleep with, remember? But I don't need all that. I just need you, Daddy." Those words hung in the air, fragile and powerful. Sometimes truth doesn't come from books or wisdom. It comes from a little girl holding a drawing with grease-stained fingers. Emma hugged him tightly, leaving a small handprint of oil on his shirt. He laughed softly. "Guess I'm marked now." My little artist left her signature. They both laughed. Then Ray lifted Emma onto the hood of the car. "You know what, kiddo? How about today you help me fix this one? We'll make it our project." "Really?" "Really, but first you gotta wear the magic hat." He placed his old mechanic cap on her head. It slid down over her eyes. She giggled. "It's too big. You'll grow into it." And just like that, the garage once filled with the hum of engines filled instead with laughter, questions, and tiny hands pretending to tighten bolts that didn't need tightening. To anyone passing by, it was just another morning in a small town. But inside that little shop, something deeper was being repaired, not a car, but a connection. Around noon, a woman arrived, Sarah, Ray's wife and Emma's mom. She stood quietly at the entrance, watching her husband and daughter laugh over a simple car engine as though it were a playground. "Well, looks like I found my 2 grease monkeys. Hey, we're just building dreams here, one bolt at a time." For the first time in a long while, she saw her husband truly happy, not tired, not distracted, just present. A few hours later, Ray finished tightening the last bolt. The car engine roared back to life. "It works, Daddy, it works." "Sure does. You did good, partner. Can we fix another one? Tomorrow, maybe. For now, how about some ice cream?" "Yay, can we go now?" They high-fived, Emma still wearing the oversized cap. They closed the shop early that day, something Ray rarely did. But as he walked hand in hand with Emma down the street, the thought settled in his mind like a promise: work could wait. Moments like these couldn't. They sat at a small ice cream parlor, Emma's face smeared with chocolate. Ray just watched, smiling. He thought about all the years he'd spent chasing stability, worrying about bills, deadlines, customers, everything that felt so important. Yet here in this simple moment, he realized the richest thing he could ever have was right in front of him. "Daddy, why are you smiling?" "Because I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I'm lucky too, 'cause I have the best, Daddy." They clinked their spoons like glasses, laughing. Sometimes life's most profound lessons come not from the moments we plan, but from the ones that catch us off guard, like a little girl running into her father's arms in a dusty garage, shouting the simplest word in the world. "Dad," a few days later, Ray decided to do something special. He closed the shop one afternoon, hung a small sign on the door that read, "Gone fishing, be back tomorrow," and took Emma on a short drive to the lake outside town. It wasn't really about fishing, it was about time, about the kind of silence that lets hearts speak louder than words. Ray taught Emma how to cast the line. She fumbled, nearly dropped the rod. They both laughed. "I'm not very good at this, Daddy." "You don't have to be, you just have to try. That's how we learn. Like fixing cars." Exactly like fixing cars. They sat quietly, feet in the water. The lake reflected the setting sun, and for a while there was nothing but the sound of gentle ripples and a little girl humming softly to herself. A gentle breeze carried her laughter as she leaned on her father's shoulder. There are moments that define us, not the grand achievements, not the busy schedules, but the soft, fleeting seconds where love simply exists without needing to prove itself. Ray glanced down at Emma, asleep on his arm, and smiled. "I'll always make time for you, kiddo, always." Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. The garage still bustled with work, the engine still roared, but every day at 5 p.m. sharp, Ray shut down early. It became a ritual, no overtime, no excuses. He'd pick up Emma, and they'd head home together. Sometimes they'd fix her toy cars, sometimes they'd bake cookies, and sometimes they'd just sit on the porch, counting stars. And every now and then, she'd still run into the garage shouting, "Dad," just like that first day. The years passed, and the drawings on the wall multiplied, each one a memory, a piece of time captured in crayon and love. Until one day, the shop was no longer Ray's alone. Emma, now a teenager, stood in the same spot, hands stained with grease, just like her dad once was. Emma had grown, taller, wiser, but with the same spark in her eyes. She'd taken over the shop, just like her father taught her. Ray, now older, watched proudly from a chair in the corner, his heart full. "Hey, Dad, looks like I finally grew into your hat." "Guess you did, kiddo." It's strange how life works. The moments we think are small become the ones that define us. A little girl's shout, a father's smile, a garage filled not just with cars, but with love. The dusty garage had a new sign above it now, "Cole and Daughter Auto Works." The name had changed, but the spirit remained the same, built on care, patience, and the unbreakable bond between a father and his little girl. Emma closed the shop at sunset, turning off the lights. She looked at the wall full of drawings and smiled. She ran her finger along one old drawing, the first one she ever made, now framed and slightly faded. "Miss you, Daddy." Ray had passed a few years back, peacefully, with the sound of his daughter's laughter still echoing in his memory. But his presence lingered in every tool, every memory, every heartbeat of that little garage. And each time Emma heard the laughter of a child passing by the shop, she could almost hear a faint echo, a little girl's voice shouting, "Dad, cherish the moments. They become your forever."